out the new single in 2022.
Yeah, yeah. The world is really kind of caving in around us and imploding. So my great escape from that is to write, to create, and put out music. I mean, ideally the music's for me, but if others can enjoy it, that's great. Um, so yeah, we're in 2022 and punching out a new release. Yeah.
And what's the name of the new release?
So the release is called Eyes of Evil, and I don't generally get into what the songs are about because I think that's kind of up to the listener to interpret what they believe the message is. Um, but it is Eyes of Evil is the name of the song.
What is the release date for Eyes of Evil?
So Eyes of Evil will release on October 28th of 2022, which is about 5 days from now. So pretty excited about the release and hoping that everyone else is too.
How many singles have you released in the past year?
So I'm not going to say it's been the most productive year, but in general, I think I have pretty productive years when it comes to releasing singles. I believe I've released about 5 singles in 2022, and depending on how busy I am and with other projects and other things, depends on how many releases I have. I don't stretch for a number, but I believe I usually produce about a song every 2 months on average, and that includes all the production related activities that go along with that. So yeah, usually about every 2 months. So I guess you could say I'm one off the mark for this year, but again, I don't stretch for a number. The number is what it is, and this year it's about 5, I believe.
So you've been pretty busy writing.
Yeah. So writing again, it's like an escape for me. When I write, I forget about all things going on in the world. So it really, I get into my own zone for a couple months. Obviously not contiguously, but for a large majority of the 2 months, I'm pretty deep and pretty deeply occupied with the project. And again, it's probably one of the few things that I do that it's like an escape hatch. You don't think of anything that's going on. If Rocket Man's launching nukes, if we're blowing things up, if Ukraine's being attacked, if Iran is threatening us, if our president's falling down on the stage, no matter what's going on, I don't think about any of that. So it just has to be, it's like a way to get out of the world. So for me, it's very therapeutic. Probably the most therapeutic thing that I can do, and I've been doing that now since I was, a very young child, through my teenage years and all through my life. So it's to me, it's the most therapeutic release you can possibly have. And I'm sure that other musicians would, we would be in agreement that that's probably the case for many musicians out there. At least we hope so. If it's not an escape, then I don't know what they're doing it for.
Many may not know that you write. You play all the instruments, you do all of your own production, from marketing, recording, mixing, mastering, and worldwide distribution. This is the Mastro Project, correct?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people listen to my music and they think that I'm a player in the band, or I'm somehow, if they just listen, there's a lot of folks out there on YouTube and Facebook and other social media outlets that listen and they're like, oh, that's great. I guess he plays guitar or he sings or whatever he does. But actually, I do everything. and I do the writing, I write the music, I write the lyrics, I play all instruments, and I do all the publishing, the mixing, mastering, publishing, distribution, all of that. Um, and I do that for a variety of reasons. One is, uh, obviously, I'm a control freak. I like to control things. I like to control the inputs and outputs. I think that, um, it's just, it's one of my OCD issues, I guess. The other thing is, I'm not a very patient person, so I like to create when I feel like creating. I like to record when I feel like recording. And I really don't like a lot of opinions in the process. I've played with a lot of bands over the years, and anybody who knows what that's like knows the complexities of having multiple personalities. Hopefully, I don't have multiple personalities, but just dealing with multiple personalities is complicated, and I really don't have the tolerance or patience for that. So. Do I lack musical creativity? Is there is there a trade-off? And the answer is 100%. There's a trade-off. I would love to collaborate with folks, and certainly you're going to get a very different sound. You're going to get a very different feel. I'm a firm believer in also recording the rhythm section hot, which I don't get to do because I am the rhythm section, so I have to multi-track that. But there's a lot of magic in recording a rhythm section hot, and certainly I miss that aspect of creating music. But I think that for what it affords me, as far as flexibility, I would rather just play all the instruments. And some I'm okay at, and some I'm a little better at, and some I'm not so good at. But it's certainly a learning experience when, like if I break out a song that has keyboards and I play keyboards in it, I don't play keyboards generally. So when I break it out, I learn a little bit too. There's a lot of varieties of reasons why I do it the way I do it. But yes, the Mastro Project consists of me and only me. And once in a while, I do bring in a guest. I bring somebody in as a guest appearance on a song. I've done that. I usually do that with people I've known for a very long time and I consider to be friends. I'll bring them in to do a guitar part, or I'll bring them in to do keys or whatever. So I don't object to that. Certainly I will do that from time to time.
What markets have you been popular in?
So, I get a lot of reports. I run a lot of statistics. I love statistics. I'm a statistics guy. I get, royalties throughout the world. I don't certainly make a lot of money off of it. I don't make enough money to live. That's for sure. I wish I did. But I can tell you that it is strange, some of the markets that I get hits in, right? Russia. I get a lot of plays in Russia. One of the odd ones that I saw probably about a year or two ago was I got a bunch of hits in Turkey. So these are like YouTube hits, plays, hundreds, thousands of plays sometimes throughout the month in various markets throughout the world. It equates to not much money, right? So everybody screams about the 0.0000001 cent you make off of a play. It's not enough to certainly feed you. But I have shown hits, and sometimes lots of hits in markets over in Eastern Europe, which is interesting. Obviously Europe and Asia too. I get hits in Asia as well. But primarily most of my hits are domestic, but I do show up in the international markets in some strange places sometimes.
What can we expect from this release? Is it different from any of your other releases?
So, if you're listening to my music and you're just like, okay, yeah, that's another song from the Project, you're gonna think, they all kind of sound similar and alike, and of course that's true with any musical artist. You're gonna find that to be the case. For me though, there's nuances in my music, and there's things that I bring in each song that I produce that I think are different, and it's an evolutionary process. That's how I look at it, and the evolution obviously is, how to arrange. How, obviously tonal quality is very important, but arrangement is very critical, and then of course the message. But I think that from an arrangement standpoint and complexity, I think I continue to grow in that area. It's like I said, it's an evolution. There's not a destination; it's just a journey, and I think that each song progresses, and there is evolution in each song. Now, whether the listener hears it, I know some do, because I've had conversations with personal friends and other folks that are musicians, that have told me they could see it. But my when I produce a product, my goal is always to produce something that is different than what I've produced before. Even though it might sound very, very close, I think that Eyes of Evil, I think there's a lot more complexity in it. I think the guitar parts are a little more involved. I think the changes and the arrangements a little bit more involved. And I think it also depends. When I write, I'm heavily influenced by what I'm into at the time, right? So if I'm listening to Green Day, you might get more of a Green Day feel, even though I don't feel I have a lot of Green Day feel in my music, but I'm just using that as an example. If I'm listening to a lot of Slayer, you might hear more Kerry King type riffs coming out. If I'm listening to, on this song, I was listening a lot to Lane Staley. I really, Lane had his issues, but from an artist standpoint, I look at Lane Staley as just a phenomenal singer, and Jerry Cantrell. And these two folks are from Alice in Chains, if folks aren't aware of that. But I've been listening to a lot of Alice in Chains, a lot of Lane Staley. So you'll hear that actually. You could hear that in the middle of the song. There's some harmonies in there which have a little bit of an Alice in Chains kind of feel to it. There's some riffs in there that are a little bit more Slayer style, drumming style, perhaps a little bit too. Certainly not Dave Lombardo to that level, but the feeling is there. So the bottom line is, what I produce is a lot of times what I am what I am being consumed with at the time, and that changes constantly. It's constantly changing. I can get into Tori Amos for a month and just be all Tori Amos, and I could, and I move around from musician to musician, and I think I think it helps shape my music ultimately, and makes it a little different. I think my music is different. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think my music is different?
I think it's definitely different. It definitely isn't the norm that we hear today.
Yeah, I don't think you could say I'm copying or ripping anybody off. I think it's original, for better or for worse, whatever that means. But I think it's original. So yeah, I think that there's going to be for folks that have listened to my music and understand what I've produced in the past. I think that they'll see that that there's a little bit maybe more complexity in the arrangement style of the music, and certainly quality is big to me. Production quality is huge, and I always try to improve upon that using various techniques, but production quality is very critical.
I understand that Eyes of Evil is over 6 minutes long. which is very different than song lengths traditionally released. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a 6 minute song is six plus is a long song by today's standards. Certainly back in the standards when I was listening to music, it's not, right? When you think back, you know, there was Led Zeppelin songs when I grew up that were, you know, one side of the whole record was one song, right? I mean, you think back of, you know, Dazed and Confused and Moby Dick and these great songs from the past. They were long. Yes, the band Yes created very long songs, right? I grew up on that. I grew up on these anthems, right? They were, you know, 20 minutes, 25 minutes long, a half hour long, these songs. So for me to produce a song that's 3 minutes is, you know, you got to get in and get out, and that's what kids want to hear today, right? They want to be in and get and out, and I've done a lot of that over the last couple of years. The 3 minute songs, I like those. I can produce them quicker, right? Because they're easier to push out. They're easier to produce. They're easier to record, to mix, to master. Everything's a little easier when they're shorter. But I don't have a number. Again, I don't look at a number and say, hey, this song's going to be 6 minutes long. What I do is when I arrange the pieces, I usually write X amount of riffs for a song, no specific number, but let's just say 20. And you know, one riff out of the 20 might only last 3 seconds. It might be a bridge or, you know, a change between a verse and a chorus. So it could be just a quick couple notes. That makes the cut because, again, I don't use, I may record a full measure of something, but I don't use it all. So then I piece it all together. And how it gets pieced together during that process determines how long the song will be. Sometimes, you know, too many measures. Sometimes I reduce it. Sometimes I increase it. You know, so it ends up being what it is in the end. And this particular song, "Eyes of Evil," I think is about 6 minutes and 30 seconds long. I think it's 6:29 to be exact, but yeah, about 6.5 minutes long. Very long by today's standards. Certainly not radio play, you know. But again, look at Metallica. They've had a lot of success in writing long songs. Metallica still writes long songs. And sometimes I'm in the car and I'm like, wow, like this song's been on for a long time and it's still great. So if you're going to write a long song, in my opinion, you got to keep it interesting, because listeners, they lose their attention span. Isn't it's certainly today for the folks that are my age, that are a little older, their attention span's a little better. But the kids today, they want a hook right in the beginning, they want a hook in the middle, they want a hook in the end, they want the whole song to be a hook. You know, it's not easy to write hooks. It's not easy to write one hook in a song, let alone to write a couple hooks in a song. It's just, for me anyway, it's just not easy.
What is the central theme of the new release?
So, my songs are usually politically motivated. And what that, and I can't help that, right? I mean, I could sing about a lot of things. I'm not really good at singing about love. It doesn't come across right. I don't want to sing about, you know, hacking people with hatchets and stuff, and you know, so I don't do that. But I do politics, and you know, I know a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't do politics, but everybody does politics. Either one way or another, it's affecting you. The political landscape affects everybody. You know, as we can see today, we're paying ridiculous amounts of money for gas and groceries, and, you know, just everything. You know, lumber, all commodities are sky high. You know, so politics affects everybody. And if you're not angry about it, well, you should be, right? And there's what can I do as a person, as one individual, to affect that? And the answer is not a whole heck of a lot. But I could certainly bring attention to it through music. Not that that affects anything, but it at least makes me feel better. At least I feel like I voiced my opinion on a larger stage than I normally would have, because, as I indicated, my music is distributed worldwide. So, the message is being heard by many. Not that there's going to ever be a change based off of my message, but if we all speak up collectively, maybe there will be. I don't know. But yeah, central theme is political, evil people that we put in place. We've given the great honor of serving the people, and they have they've neglected their duty to serve us and to serve in the best capacity and what's the best needs are. And I think that's terrible. That should never happen. And I believe that these people are ultimately evil people. They have an agenda. They're not you and I. They're not the average person. And for the most part, long as we're living good lives and we're happy and we got all the things around us that make us happy, we just go along with it, which is just a shame. And that's just not in the United States. That's everywhere. These are just evil people. These are rotten people. When you have to question common sense, when you have to say, who would even think like that? That tells you that they're evil people. It's greed. It's follow the money. I don't want to get too political here, but at the end of the day, if it seems too good to be or too crazy to be true, not too good to be true, too crazy to be true, or too good to be true, then you have to say there's money, there's something else involved. There's something else here, because it's just too crazy to think that anybody would espouse those ideas to the general public. So yeah, very political in nature.
As with many of your songs and even album covers, things are a bit cryptic at times. Can you explain the rationale behind that?
Yeah, so I like to keep things a little bit cryptic, and that might have been my days of listening to Led Zeppelin and I will say, I was going to say alike bands, but I don't think there really is an alike band to Led Zeppelin. Obviously, I was a huge Led Zeppelin fan when I was younger, when I was growing up. And I think that Robert Plant was very cryptic. I think the whole band was cryptic, right? I mean, you look at their album covers, look at their songs. I grew up with that, and I think that leads, it lends itself to the listener to develop their own impressions on what a song is about, what they believe it's about. I don't think you have to go into great detail explaining it. I've had musicians explain songs before, and I was totally let down. I was thinking about a Boston song years ago, and A Man I'll Never Be. And I think Tom Schultz, or one of the members of the band, came out and said, kind of explained what the song was about, and I'm like, no, I don't want to know that. Like, I have my own impression of that song forever, and I like that impression, right? That's my version, and so I want the song to always be the listener's version, not my version, right? Because everybody relates in a different way. Let it be their version. So that's kind of why I kind of like the cryptic nature of things. Sometimes, I guess, when you do that, you lose listeners sometimes because they don't understand what the song is about, but perhaps, or they don't want to invest the time into trying to understand it. But I still like that writing style. That was the Robert Plant and Jimmy Page writing style, and John Paul Jones and John Bonham back in the day. So that's my foundation.
What's on the horizon for the Mastro Project? Any ideas or direction on future releases?
Yeah, so this is interesting because I like to, as much as you try to change your styles, there's times when I try to change my style a little bit so I can offer something different and unique. Um, I've had friends tell me in the past, you know, Jimmy Vignona, a good friend of mine, we've played in different projects over the years. He said to me one day, when your song starts, I always know it's you. I always know basically right from the first riff. Like, it just has your signature style on it. And I remember saying to him at one time, like, well, I don't want that. Like, I don't want you to know who I am maybe until the vocals come in, right? Like, I want it to be different. But I think that no band can really pull that off, and if you are pulling it off well, you probably lost your identity somewhere along the way. But you still want to offer some diversity in your music, and as much as you want to be diverse, there's always your core structure and value that you go back to, and especially being somebody who writes everything, I think it's hard to escape you, if that makes sense. So, but going back to your original question, I think ultimately the direction is, I want diversity and I want a different sound. I love Green Day. Green Day's another band that I really, really like. For a three-piece band, I think they're amazing. I would love to do something that's a little bit more fluid like that, a little bit more on the punk side, a little bit more fluid. But again, a leopard, can't change its spots. I am what I am, and I write the way I write. So anything I try to do to change that style kind of goes against the, my core, right? But that's what I would like to do. I'd like to do something more along those lines. I'd like to do a little bit more acoustic stuff. I'm on the fence with that a little bit, because that has to come across right. And so, but yeah, again, I think a little bit more diversity in the genre, should I say? So that's what I look at for the future is just providing a little bit more diversity, if that's possible. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Well, thank you for taking the time out today, and we wish you success in all of your future endeavors.
Thank you. Yeah. Look forward to it, and if anybody wants to catch up on singles, albums, what have you, the mastroproject.com, go there. If you're looking at a YouTube video, I know everybody says it, but click the like if you don't mind. All of that matters. If you don't like it, obviously don't click it. I don't want you to like something that you don't like. But yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.